Sam, thank you so much for joining us just before Christmas. We're recording, so thank you for squeezing us in.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me in, John. I really look forward to it.
Yeah, my pleasure, my pleasure. So I came across your details recently on, I think it was LinkedIn, and I've seen some of the work you've been doing and the product you're building. So that's something I'm keen to discuss. But I think products are definitely a hot topic, and a lot of people I speak to want to build a product at some point. So it would be interesting to understand a bit about your background and how you got to this point of releasing something. So what did your career look like before Salesforce? What did you do before you found your way into the Salesforce world?
Sure. Yeah, so I studied finance and German at university. And I guess my plan from there was to start building my path in a finance career. So I started working in a wealth management company back in New Zealand, where I'm originally from, and was working in a customer facing role. So talking with customers about their investments and that kind of thing. And yeah, we were customers of Salesforce. So that was basically my first exposure to Salesforce at all. I hadn't heard about it before, definitely hadn't used it, and definitely hadn't done any kind of admin work. So that was my first full-time job straight out of university, was working that customer-facing role, and gave me really good experience in just talking with people, solving problems for people, and just a good ethic in how to work, really.
But you were using Salesforce in that role on the customer side. Were you like, you were,
Correct.
I guess, an end user?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so
How did you find it? How did, like, when you were using Salesforce, was it a platform you enjoyed working with? Because, you get different responses when you ask this question.
Yeah, so I think because I was fresh into the company, I didn't have any kind of baggage that I was carrying across from any previous systems. It had only been implemented, I think, 5 or 6 months before I joined. And so some of the people that had been there previously had, I guess, their previous ways of doing things, and Salesforce is this completely new tool, and the data looks different, and all of those kind of common stories that you had. But for me, who was fresh into the company and didn't have any idea of what it was really like beforehand, I really loved Salesforce because it was, for me, very easy to use. There was so much that you could do with it. And I guess as I started using it more and more, I just saw the possibilities that we could end up using it for.
So were you straight into using Lightning, or did you have any experience classic side?
Yep. So it was definitely still a classic version of Salesforce. So that would have been back in 2017.
Yeah.
So Lightning was available back then, but it was still kind of in the period where there was quite a big difference between Lightning and Classic. So there would have been a lot more configuration needed at the time to switch it across. So no, it was definitely still on the old lovable Classic version.
Because that's interesting, because when I think of someone coming out of university and the things you would have been using or seeing and the technology that you would have been used to, then
Yep.
using Classic, I'm surprised it was, maybe because you didn't know anything different, but like the UI and it would have been quite dated, right? So it's surprising that you enjoyed working with it straight away, and it wasn't seen as like this clunky older system. And whereas if someone only knows Lightning, then I guess it's modern. It's what people would expect from an enterprise platform now.
Yeah, so I guess my experience throughout university, a lot of the work that we were doing was just with Excel. So
Okay.
in terms of kind of data analysis or projection models or anything like that, 99% of it was done with Excel. A little bit of kind of Python programming on the side, but most of it was, yeah, very, very much Excel based. So having any kind of like web interface that you can easily just search into, you can connect lots of different objects together. I just found that very, very easy and I guess relatable.
Yeah, nice. So then how did you go from being on the business side as a user to becoming a Salesforce professional?
Yeah, so like I said, we'd only had Salesforce for kind of 5 to 6 months when I started at the company, and we didn't have any internal admin resources. So we'd had an implementation partner come in, kind of build the whole system for us, connect the different data that we had, and then we just kind of left it to ourselves to deal with the ongoing maintenance of it. And so as I started doing more and more work, in the customer facing side, I also started picking up some tasks on the side, like building a report, for example, where either my boss or another person in the company would want to extract some data out of Salesforce. I had just kind of taught myself through Trailhead and YouTube tutorials how to build a report. So I'd go in and build a report and save it and say, here, look, here's this report you can do. And that turned into building a dashboard. And that turned into, hey, we want to be able to see this other metric here. Is there any way we can do this? So then I'd go away and research and say, hey, yeah, I think we can add this custom field or this lookup relationship or something. And we'd just start doing more and more until eventually, I guess the company saw that there was a need for this in a more full-time capacity. And they ended up creating a role, which at the time was a business analyst role. So it's definitely more focused on the data side of things. But a lot of our data was held within Salesforce. And so that was, I guess, my first step into a kind of admin-like role, if you like.
I think what people can take from that is like, we see a lot of people that want to get into the Salesforce world. And I think people are maybe looking to apply for Salesforce admin roles or looking for new positions. But I think you took the initiative, right? You kind of studied and learned yourself and then kind of created a role for yourself by taking on more and more responsibility in the business you're already working in and showing a desire and hunger to learn and pick up something new. And then ultimately, it was obvious they would give you the role rather than finding someone externally because you'd shown that hunger. And I think a lot of people that might be working on the customer side can take something from that because, or on the business side, because there is a way you can maneuver your way into a Salesforce role, I guess, if your company uses Salesforce.
Yeah, for sure. So I basically just put myself out there as, I talked to my manager and said, hey, I'm willing to pick up some kind of extra tasks. I want to develop my skill set. And when there was any little report or something that needed done, I would just give it a try. And if I couldn't do it, I'd go back to them and say, hey, I might need some more time or I need some help with this. And that was all good. But yeah, I definitely think having some experience on the customer facing side and being an end user of Salesforce helped my understanding of the admin side of things as well. Because, sometimes I feel like there's things in Salesforce that you can implement from an admin perspective or from a developer perspective that might not actually fit what the end user needs. But I was coming from the end user side and then slowly starting to build up my admin knowledge from there. So I think that really helped with my positioning in the company.
Definitely. And now you're in Germany, and I know I understand the journey that you went through to get there in terms of finding a job before you actually arrived in Germany. And I think a lot of people are looking for new opportunities outside of the country they're in at the moment. And how did you nail a job before you'd even step foot in Germany for this time, I guess?
Yeah, so the plan was initially just to move over to Germany and try and find a job once I was over here. So the plan was to kind of take maybe 2 or 3 months as a holiday period, if you like, come over, get myself set up, and then start applying for jobs once I was here. But what I actually did beforehand is there was a couple people that I reached out to. So one of those was our account executive at Salesforce for the company I was still working with. He had recently moved back to Canada. And so I reached out to him and just said, hey, look, I'm moving over to Germany. I really want to stay in the Salesforce ecosystem. Is there anyone that you would at least have, that I could have a chat with over there just to get some ideas about the best way to approach finding a job in Germany and what Salesforce is like in Germany? And he was really, really helpful and actually posted on, I think, an internal forum or a Slack or something like that over in Germany. And an account executive in Germany saw the post, looked me up on LinkedIn because I'd actually changed my location already on LinkedIn to Frankfurt, saw that I was in Frankfurt and knew of a consulting company who was looking for someone who had English and German knowledge, had experience in the finance industry. And they reached out to me and we had a couple of interviews and talked about the visa situation, which kind of sorted itself out. And I think it was about a month before I even left New Zealand, I had found the job. So I guess it just goes to show, and it really gave me confidence in the Salesforce ecosystem that it is really community-based and people are really willing to help each other out. So that was worked out really, really well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think, and also, so you're with the visa situation, like, did you have a visa before you changed your location to Frankfurt?
No, so as a New Zealand citizen, you can come over to Europe. So you can come over to Germany for 3 months on a tourist visa, essentially. And then my plan was there's a job seekers visa that you can go on. So if you're coming here and looking for full-time employment, you get up to 6 months to live here and look for employment. And then there's the best visa you can apply for is called the blue card visa, which lets you stay and work in Germany for 4 years. And then you can also, at the end of those 4 years, just roll it over for another 4 years. So my plan was just to do that. But once I actually arrived in Germany, because I already had the job contract, I was able to apply for that blue card visa just straight away.
And if you're in Australia or New Zealand listening to this, please don't take any of that advice, because we can't do with anyone leaving the region for Germany. But yeah, good to know. Good to know for people that might consider a trip to Europe in the future. And I understand, so you were in finance, and your experience had kind of been quite core to that finance world. But were you specializing in particular Salesforce products or areas of Salesforce as well at the time?
Yeah, so I guess at the wealth management company in New Zealand, we had Sales Cloud, or Sales and Service Cloud, and we had Marketing Cloud also that came in at the end, and we also had Analytics Cloud, which is now Tableau CRM. And so I was very much heavy on the analytics side of things, managing the data flows, building interactive dashboards, customer analysis, and that kind of stuff. So I was very much focused on the Analytics Cloud side of things. And so the consulting company over in Germany had actually a contract with a customer looking to implement Analytics Cloud. And it was quite a new product at the time. So there weren't that many people who actually had hands-on experience of Analytics Cloud who have implemented it, built dashboards, distributed them to end users. So I think that was really the key selling point for myself, is that at the time, I didn't actually have any certifications. I didn't have any admin certifications, analytics consultant, any of that stuff. I just told them the different types of projects that I had done. And yeah, I think that was the key selling point, was that I had that hands-on experience.
Out of interest, why didn't you have certifications at that point?
I guess, to be honest, when I was in the role in New Zealand, there was no kind of expectation, because I'd kind of fell into the role. I never really thought of it as there being a need for me to get the certifications. But I guess as I've moved through my career, I definitely see the value in them, especially when you're moving between roles, or for your own branding, I guess. It's just an easy stamp that people can say, okay, he obviously has some level of understanding. But like I said, in the first job, because I'd kind of created that role for myself, and I wasn't actively looking for other admin-like or consultant positions until I was moving to Germany. And it was just never a priority for me in those early years.
And were you at that point when you were in New Zealand, because obviously I know now from your what you're doing with the product and the community that you're now involved in, like, were you involved in an active kind of community and user group and things like that in New Zealand?
Yeah, so not too heavily, but there was definitely some events that I attended. So whenever there was any kind of like mini Dreamforces, if you like, that they held in Auckland, I would definitely attend those. I presented to some of the account executives in Salesforce in Auckland when I had implemented the Analytics Cloud, again, because that was a new product and they hadn't really seen many customers or many use cases in New Zealand of people using that product. So I definitely had some connections in the local space, which were really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So when did you decide that you had, or you wanted to build a product? And was it because you identified a need for the product, or did you always want to kind of have an idea that you could build?
So I'd always wanted to have my own business, even before I'd gone to university. Like, I think it first started when my uncle down in Wellington had his own pub, and sometimes when I'd go to visit him, I'd go with him at the end of the night, and he'd be just like counting the money in the cash register, and those kinds of things. I guess it just built like an entrepreneurial spirit, if you like, in me, that I'd always wanted to have my own business. And so I'd always had that inside, that feeling that I wanted to build something for myself, build a product that people wanted to use. And I was just kind of waiting for the right time, or I often struggled for the right idea. So I'd often I often felt like I could execute something, but I was just struggling to think the idea. And I guess from my time working on the admin side of things, and then throughout my time as a consultant, I just saw lots of companies having issues with data, getting data into Salesforce, having clean data, and just connecting different systems. And there was lots of manual work going on, lots of consulting hours, or lots of very, very expensive products. And then I would just talk with different people on Twitter, look through Trailhead or the Idea Exchange and see other people having similar concerns. And so I thought there was an opportunity in the market. And at the time, I was still working as a consultant, and we basically had it in the contracts that we can't kind of create our own product in the Salesforce ecosystem while we're still working as a consultant. And so I thought it was just a good point in my career. Like I felt I had enough experience, and I thought to be able to fully focus on the product, that I should do it full time. And so I quit my job essentially and decided to focus on building the product full time.
Jumped in with both feet.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, nice. So tell me a little bit about the product. What is it, and who is it solving problems for?
Yeah, so it's essentially a tool for both admins and consultants to help clean and connect and import their data into Salesforce. So if you think of the kind of standard Salesforce data loader product, it's a piece of software that you have to install on the PC, and it's very good at being able to do kind of basic imports or updates of data, but it's generally a very manual task, and there's no kind of ability for you to clean data or connect different data together, or schedule those jobs unless you do some kind of manual coding work. So I thought there was a position in the market and a product that could really help kind of small to medium-sized Salesforce customers connect their data sources, whether it be like Dropbox or external database systems or even just CSV files, clean that data up so you can kind of deduplicate records, format different columns, create formula columns, and get it imported into Salesforce, and then schedule those imports if they needed to be run daily, weekly, or monthly.
Yeah, nice. So when you mentioned before you really struggled to have the idea, you thought you could execute. So now you have the idea, and how did you then execute? Because that sounds to me, you built a product, right, which typically means you need to code something, you need to develop something, and your background wasn't from the software engineering or computer science space. So what have you had to learn and develop and grow as an individual to be able to build this product?
Yeah, so I did one computer science paper while at university, and that was like an introduction to Python course. And so that really sparked an interest in me wanting to learn programming further. So I didn't go down the route of studying it at university, but what I would do is kind of on the weekends or after work, I would just kind of teach myself Python. So I would try and develop my own programs or my own web apps for myself, just for my own kind of personal use. And throughout that time, learned some skills in building web apps and UI and that kind of stuff. And so I was able to use those skills when I started to build a product, and I've just kind of expanded my knowledge since then.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, so I think it's, did you, like the moment you decided this was the product for you, did you have enough level of skill in Python to start building, or did you then have to really kind of ramp up and spend a period of time really focusing on that before you could actually get to building?
So I would say the fundamentals of the product I was pretty good at, because a lot of what the product is doing is loading data, manipulating data, data analysis, and that kind of thing, which I'd done a lot of throughout university as well. So I felt like I had the core concepts down pretty well. But a lot of what I've had to learn is things like server deployment, security, patching, all of those kinds of things, which I just didn't really have that much experience with. And it's been really good with the Salesforce community, and also with people on Twitter and LinkedIn have been really, really helpful. So whenever I've had questions, I'll just either post it publicly or reach out to people who I know are also in a similar space, and people have been really willing to help, and I've learned a lot from them as well.
Yeah, that's something I found interesting, and that's kind of how I came across you on LinkedIn, was because you are building in public. You're very open and honest around, what you're doing, how it's going, the results so far. Why did you decide that was the best approach? And kind of what value have you got from doing that and building with the ecosystem, I guess, and them on side?
Yeah, so I guess I saw on Twitter specifically that there was quite a lot of people since the pandemic started. A lot more people have been kind of working remotely or building a side project and starting their own businesses. And this build in public movement is essentially, yeah, like you said, where people will start either a side business or a full-time business, and will just talk very openly about it on social media, so on Twitter or LinkedIn, giving updates about revenue, about what's been working, what hasn't been working, new features, or if the product failed, just being really open and honest. And so I saw lots of people doing that and just took inspiration for it. And because, like you said, I didn't have a background as a software developer, I knew that lots of these people would be able to help me out as well, and just be someone that I could bounce ideas off. And so I started to just, talk about the product or talk about that general idea of data and Salesforce. And what it's been really helpful for is I've had people just reaching out to me before I'd even launched the product, wanting to try it out, wanting to suggest features. And, sometimes I would build something in the product and think that it's kind of really obvious how you would use it and how it should be done. And then people would go in and be really confused. So it's been really helpful for getting feedback about the product and what has and hasn't been working. And it's just been really a good opportunity to talk with people from all over the world. So I've talked with people from Australia, Canada, Asia, South America, working in lots of different roles and responsibilities. So it's been a great way to connect with people from all around the world, I guess.
Yeah, awesome. That's amazing to hear. And what has been the biggest challenge, aside from, I guess, actually building the product and learning the things you didn't from a technical standpoint, like running a business and launching a business and things like that? What's been challenging that maybe you didn't expect to be as challenging?
I guess I kind of knew it would be challenging in a sense, but the marketing for the product is not something that I have any experience with. So I've got kind of experience on the data analysis side and Salesforce consulting and admin side. So I knew I'd be reasonably solid on that side of things. But in terms of marketing a product, how to talk to the right people is something that I've definitely struggled with. So a lot of our early users have been Salesforce admins or Salesforce consultants. But what I've kind of found is that they're often the right end users for the product, but sometimes not the people who will end up being the decision makers whether to purchase the product or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess kind of finding that difference between, I obviously want people to be using the product, but at the same time, I want to be able to find people who are also going to be able to decide whether to buy the product or not. So that's something which I'm still in the learning process of.
Yeah, I think that's often the challenge that we hear, because it's just a different skill set, right? And it's something you've never had to do before or never been exposed to in terms of purely marketing a product. And I think like marketing services and marketing a product are very different as well. And a lot of people think if you build a great product, people will just come and find it, but that isn't really how it works.
No. So I've seen, like, another competitor product, I guess, is dataloader.io. And so one of the ways that I've been able to find people to kind of test the product is just by people that are going on those forums and saying, asking for a feature or saying something that they're not happy with, and I'll just reach out to them and talk with them and basically try and get them on board. So that's been a really good way of being able to find people willing to test out the product as well.
Yeah, just being a bit more creative. And I think have you read Mark Benioff's book? I think it was the first book, Behind the Cloud, or where it talks about like the early days of Salesforce marketing and like being a bit kind of different and going and doing things that perhaps weren't seen to be the right thing to do, but really quickly built the brand. And I think it's just about being creative right in this day and age, and using the technology and hunting people, I guess, and just being a bit different and being seen to be a bit quirky, or your style to be a bit more out there.
Yeah, for sure. And then I think that another challenge which I'm facing is just having trust in the ecosystem, because I feel like that's a pretty big part of the Salesforce ecosystem. Obviously, the product that I built are dealing with companies and their customers' data, so it's obviously a very sensitive topic. So just being able to convince people that I'm a trustworthy person and that a product is one that they can trust is really important. So I think that's where building in public and being open and honest and having other people in the ecosystem kind of advocate for me is really, really helping as well.
Yeah,
but there's
100%.
obviously another point that I'm not at the moment, not on the App Exchange. So that's going to be, and there's already a point where some people are saying, we only want to use apps that are listed on the App Exchange, because that means Salesforce has reviewed the product. It's gone through their security review process. So there's those things, but I feel like those kinds of things will work themselves out along the way.
Definitely. And what, so aside from challenges, what have you most enjoyed about the experience so far?
To be honest, it's just been a great learning experience. Like, since I started working on the product a few months ago up until the launch earlier this month, there's just been so much I've learned from talking with different people, because obviously I've kind of only had my own experiences in the Salesforce ecosystem and faced challenges that were present in the companies I was working with, whereas some people have completely different challenges that I just would never have thought of and had never really focused the product on. So being able to just talk with people in lots of different companies of different sizes at different levels of their Salesforce or business knowledge. So I've been able to talk with people who have also built apps in the ecosystem. And some of them are, multi-million-dollar products, and some of them are kind of in the similar stage as myself. And we've been able to talk about what's been working, what hasn't been working, and I can kind of build on their learnings and skip a few steps, if you like, in that path. So I would say those are the things that I've probably enjoyed the most, is just talking with lots of different people. And obviously on the business side of things, or on the work side of things, being able to work kind of when I want, how much I want, and focus just on things that I really find enjoyable has been a really refreshing experience.
What's most important to you? And I know obviously you want the product to be successful, but like, are you seeing the revenue as the most important thing, or is it just the learning for you at this stage of your kind of career and journey?
Yeah, so I mean, revenue is obviously going to be a part of it at some point. So the plan for the product at the moment is essentially just to, I guess, get the word out there, build up some kind of branding and some awareness of the product, build up the free user base as well, because we have a free tier for the product where people can use it with all of the features, and the only limit is just the amount of data. And so I'm trying to just build up as much knowledge and experience as I can. And the hope is that eventually I'll have enough revenue for the product where it can essentially pay for my cost of living, and then kind of see where to go from there. So I don't have any, I guess, grand plans that this is going to be the next billion-dollar idea. But what I'm wanting to get out of it is learning, which so far I definitely am. And then, potentially going into the future, it'd be a kind of revenue income source for myself.
Yeah, nice. And I mean, I think you're taking all of the right steps for it to be a success, and obviously you're enjoying the experience so far, which is also really important. No one wants to build something that they don't enjoy working with, and you're really getting the power of the Salesforce ecosystem by collaborating and being embedded in that space and picking people's brains. So that's really great to hear. And if anyone wants to reach out and pick your brains yourself, if someone's kind of a couple of steps behind where you were, or even a potential customer, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, you can either email me at sam@dataimporter.io, or you can find me on Twitter or LinkedIn. It's just Sam Hoult, so it's pretty straightforward. And happy to have a chat with anyone who has any questions about the product or just about building an app on Salesforce. I'll be happy to pass on the help.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to seeing where things are this time next year, and I'm sure things will be a success, because you're putting yourself out there, and it seems you have a thirst for learning as well, which can only be a good thing.
For sure. Yeah. Thanks so much for your time, Ben.
Thank you.